I never thought I'd become the kind of person who looks forward to their morning commute, but here we are. For 3 years, I took the same subway line every single day. The Red Line downtown, departing at 7:42 in the morning from the Ashmont station. I had my routine down to a science. Second car from the front, left side, fourth seat from the door if it was available. I'd put in my earbuds, open whatever book I was reading that week, and zone out for the 30-minute ride to my office in the financial district. It was mindless, predictable, safe. And then one Tuesday morning in September, everything changed because of a guy with dark curly hair and the most genuine smile I'd ever seen. His name was Miles, though I wouldn't learn that for another 2 weeks. That first morning, he got on at the same stop as me, which wasn't unusual. Dozens of people boarded at Ashmont, but he sat down directly across from me, which was unusual because there were plenty of other empty seats scattered throughout the car. I noticed him immediately, which was also unusual because I generally made it a point not to notice anyone during my commute. I liked my bubble of solitude. But there was something about him that made me look up from my book. Maybe it was the way he was slightly out of breath, like he'd been running to catch the train. Maybe it was the messenger bag slung across his chest that had pins from bands I actually listened to. Maybe it was just him, this presence that seemed to fill the space even though he was sitting quietly, looking at his phone. I went back to my book. Or I tried to. I kept reading the same paragraph over and over because I was hyper-aware of him sitting there, just a few feet away. When the train lurched at Park Street, our eyes met for half a second when we both looked up, and he smiled. Not a polite stranger smile, but something warmer, something that made my chest feel tight. I smiled back, probably awkwardly, then immediately looked down at my book like it was the most fascinating thing I'd ever read. My heart was doing this stupid fluttering thing that I hadn't felt since high school. He got off at Downtown Crossing, same as me. I watched him disappear into the crowd, and I figured that would be it. Just one of those brief moments of connection you have with a stranger in a city of hundreds of thousands of people. Meaningless. Forgettable. Except I didn't forget about it. I thought about that smile during my entire workday. I thought about it on the ride home. I thought about it that night when I was trying to fall asleep. The next morning, Wednesday, I told myself I was being ridiculous. I took my usual train, sat in my usual seat, and opened my book. And then at Ashmont, he got on again. Same messenger bag, same slightly rushed energy, and this time he didn't just sit across from me. He sat down right next to me, even though the seat across was empty. My whole body went rigid. I could smell his cologne, something clean and cedar-like. I could feel the warmth of his arm, almost but not quite touching mine. "Good book?" he asked, and his voice was exactly what I'd imagined it would be. Warm, a little raspy, genuinely curious. I looked over at him, and up close I could see that his eyes were this incredible hazel color, more green than brown in the fluorescent train lighting. "Yeah," I managed to say, even though my brain had temporarily forgotten how to form coherent sentences. "It's a mystery novel, pretty engaging." "I'm more of a non-fiction person myself," he said, and then he pulled out a book from his bag. Some thick biography of a jazz musician I'd never heard of. But I've been meaning to branch out. Maybe I should try mysteries. We talked for the entire ride. Well, he talked, and I tried not to sound like a complete idiot while responding. He told me about the biography, about how he'd gotten into jazz in college, and now he couldn't stop reading about the history of it. I told him about the mystery novel, about how I'd been on a thriller kick lately. When we got to Downtown Crossing, we both stood up, and there was this moment of hesitation where neither of us moved toward the door. "I'm Miles, by the way," he said, extending his hand. "Read," I replied, shaking it. His hand was warm and his grip was firm, and I did not want to let go. "See you around, Reed," he said, and then he was gone again, swallowed by the morning rush. I spent that entire day at work unable to concentrate. My colleague Vanessa asked me 3 times if I was feeling okay because I kept staring off into space with what she called a goofy expression on my face. I couldn't help it. Something was happening to me. Something I hadn't expected and definitely hadn't prepared for. I dated women throughout college and my early 20s, had a few serious relationships that fizzled out for various reasons. I'd always assumed I just hadn't met the right person yet. But sitting there at my desk, replaying every word of my conversation with Miles, I started to wonder if maybe I'd been looking in the wrong direction entirely. Thursday morning, I woke up 40 minutes earlier than usual. I told myself it was because I wanted to get to work early, but that was a lie. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss that 7:42 train. I wanted to see if Miles would be there again. I got to the platform with 10 minutes to spare, feeling nervous and excited and terrified all at once. What if he wasn't there? What if he was there but sat somewhere else? What if I'd imagined the entire connection between us? He was there. He got on at Ashmont, and when he saw me, his whole face lit up. "Reed! Hey!" He made his way over and sat down next to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like we'd been doing this for years instead of 2 days. We fell into conversation easily. He asked me about my work, and I told him I was an accountant, which usually made people's eyes glaze over. But Miles seemed genuinely interested. He asked me questions about what I liked about it, what I found challenging. I asked him what he did, and he told me he was a teacher. 5th grade. He lit up when he talked about his students, about this kid who'd finally grasped long division last week, about the class hamster that had escaped and been found sleeping in someone's backpack. I could have listened to him talk for hours. Friday, same thing. He was there, waiting on the platform, and when I walked up, he grinned at me. "You know, I'm starting to think we might be on the same schedule," he said. "Looks that way," I replied, trying to sound casual even though my heart was racing. This became our routine. Every weekday morning we'd meet on the platform at Ashmont, ride the train together, talk about everything and nothing. I learned that he'd grown up in Providence, that he had 2 sisters, that he was allergic to shellfish but loved sushi anyway. He learned that I'd grown up in Boston, that I was an only child, that I'd wanted to be a marine biologist when I was a kid but was terrible at science. We talked about books and music and movies. We talked about our worst dates and our embarrassing moments and our secret ambitions. I told him things I'd never told anyone, and it felt easy, natural, right. But here's the thing I couldn't stop thinking about. Miles got on at Ashmont, same as me. He got off at Downtown Crossing, same as me. But I'd been taking this train for 3 years, and I'd never seen him before that Tuesday in September. Not once. It seemed statistically impossible that we'd been on the same schedule all this time without ever crossing paths. Unless we hadn't been on the same schedule. Unless something had changed. I didn't want to think too hard about what that might mean. I didn't want to get my hopes up, but every morning when I saw him waiting on the platform, there was this moment where our eyes would meet and he'd smile, and I felt something I'd never felt before. This pull, this certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 3 weeks into our morning routine, Miles asked me if I wanted to grab coffee sometime outside of the train. "I know this great place near Downtown Crossing," he said. "They have these incredible almond croissants. We could go on a Saturday if you're free." I was free. I would have cancelled plans to be free. "Yeah," I said, trying not to sound too eager. "That sounds great." That Saturday, I changed my outfit 4 times before leaving my apartment. I'd never been this nervous about coffee before. It's just coffee, I kept telling myself, with a friend. A new friend who happened to be incredibly attractive and kind and funny and made me feel things I was still trying to understand. Just casual coffee between casual friends. The coffee shop was this cozy little place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Miles was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of him. "I got you a latte," he said. "I hope that's okay. I realized I didn't actually know what you drank. We've been talking for weeks, and I don't know how you take your coffee." "Latte's perfect," I said, sitting down across from him. And it was perfect. He'd somehow gotten it exactly right, with just a little sugar and no flavoring. We sat there for 3 hours. The coffee shop filled up and emptied out around us, and we just kept talking. At some point, the conversation shifted to relationships. Miles mentioned an ex-boyfriend, casually, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My heart stopped, then started again, faster. "I didn't know you were gay," I said, and immediately felt stupid because why would I have known? We'd never talked about dating or relationships beyond surface-level complaints about bad dates. "I usually don't lead with it," Miles said with a slight smile. "But yeah, have been since I figured out what the feeling was, probably around 14. You?" This was it, the moment where I could be honest or I could deflect. I could feel my palms sweating. "I'm figuring it out," I said quietly. "Or maybe I've known for a while and I'm just now admitting it to myself. I dated women before, but it never felt quite right and I couldn't figure out why. And then I met you, and suddenly everything made sense." The words hung in the air between us. Miles' expression softened. "Reed," he said, and the way he said my name made my chest ache. "I need to ask you something," I continued, because I'd already started being honest and I might as well go all in. "That first day on the train, was that really a coincidence? You sitting across from me?" Miles looked down at his coffee cup, and I could see a faint blush creeping up his neck. "No," he admitted. "It wasn't a coincidence. I'd seen you before, actually. A few weeks earlier, I was visiting a friend in your building, and you were leaving as I was arriving. You held the door for me. You probably don't remember." I didn't remember. I held doors for people all the time without thinking about it. "But I remembered you," Miles continued. "And then I couldn't stop thinking about you. This guy with the kind eyes and the book always in his hand. So I asked my friend what time you usually left for work. And then I may have adjusted my schedule slightly so I could catch the same train." My mind was reeling. "You changed your entire morning routine just to ride the subway with me?" "I teach 5th grade," Miles said with a sheepish smile. "My schedule's pretty flexible. I usually got to school around 9, but I started going in at 8 instead. It meant I had an extra hour to prep for the day, so it wasn't completely irrational. But yeah, the main reason was you. I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to know if the person I'd been imagining matched the reality." "And does it?" I asked. "Match the reality?" Miles reached across the table and took my hand. It was the first time we'd really touched beyond accidental brushes on the train, and the contact sent electricity through my entire body. "You're better than anything I imagined," he said. I don't know who leaned in first. Maybe it was both of us at the same time. But suddenly we were kissing, right there in the coffee shop, and it felt like every cheesy romance novel cliché I'd ever rolled my eyes at. Fireworks, butterflies, the whole world falling away until it was just the 2 of us. And the thing was, it didn't feel cheesy at all. It felt real. It felt right. It felt like coming home. When we finally pulled apart, Miles was grinning at me. "I've wanted to do that since the first time I saw you hold that door," he said. "You should have led with that instead of the jazz biography," I replied, and he laughed, and I thought I could listen to that sound for the rest of my life and never get tired of it. We left the coffee shop hand in hand. We walked around downtown Boston for hours, just talking and laughing and stopping occasionally to kiss on street corners like teenagers. At some point, Miles told me about the first time he realized he was attracted to men, about how scary and liberating it was to accept that part of himself. I told him about the confusion I'd felt for years, about how I'd tried to force myself into relationships that never quite fit because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. "There's no timeline for figuring yourself out," Miles said. "You get there when you get there, and I'm really glad you got here." "Me too," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. That was 6 months ago. Now Miles doesn't have to adjust his schedule anymore because he just stays over at my place most nights. We still take the morning train together, but now we sit close enough that our shoulders touch, and sometimes he falls asleep with his head on my shoulder during the ride. We still talk about books and music and his students and my work. But now we also talk about our future, about the apartment we're thinking of getting together, about the trip to Providence we're planning so I can meet his family. My colleague Vanessa says I'm a completely different person now, happier, more open. I told her about Miles last month, and she said she'd known something was up because I'd been walking around the office with this ridiculous smile on my face for months. I couldn't even deny it. I do smile more now. How could I not when I wake up next to someone who learned my entire subway schedule just for the chance to talk to me? Someone who saw me and decided I was worth rearranging his life for? Sometimes I think about that first morning, about how close I came to never looking up from my book, about how different my life would be right now if Miles hadn't been brave enough to change his routine, to sit across from a stranger, to take a chance. It terrifies me and amazes me in equal measure. Last week, Miles told me he loved me. We were on the train in our usual spot, and he just said it, quiet and simple and true. "I love you, Reed." And I said it back because I'd been feeling it for months, carrying it around in my chest like a secret I was waiting for the right moment to share. "I love you too." The train lurched, and we both laughed, and I thought about how strange and beautiful life is. How you can spend years going through the motions, following the same routine, thinking you have everything figured out. And then someone comes along and changes everything. Someone who sees you in a way no one else has. Someone who makes you brave enough to see yourself clearly for the first time. I never thought I'd fall in love on the Red Line. I never thought I'd fall in love with a man. But here I am, 6 months into the most real relationship I've ever had, and I can't imagine my life any other way. Every morning when we board that train, Miles takes my hand, and I think about how lucky I am. How grateful I am that he was willing to wake up early and adjust his schedule and take a chance on a stranger with a book. How grateful I am that I finally had the courage to be honest with myself about who I am and what I want. The other day, one of Miles's students asked him why he was so happy all the time now. He told me about it on the train, grinning. Apparently, he said something about how sometimes you meet someone who makes everything better, and you should never be afraid to pursue that kind of happiness. The kid didn't really get it, but someday they will. Someday they'll understand what it means to find your person, to find the one who makes the ordinary moments extraordinary. That's what Miles does for me. He makes my morning commute something I look forward to instead of endure. He makes me laugh when I'm stressed about work. He makes me feel seen and understood and loved in a way I never knew was possible. And every single day, I fall a little more in love with him. With his terrible jokes and his passion for teaching and the way he looks at me like I'm the best thing that's ever happened to him. Because here's what I've learned these past 6 months. Love isn't always dramatic or complicated. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's a guy who learns your subway schedule just to ride with you. Sometimes it's conversations about nothing that mean everything. Sometimes it's the quiet certainty that you've found exactly where you belong. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, it's all of that wrapped up in one person who was brave enough to change their routine for the chance to know you. I'm still figuring out what it means to be a man who loves another man. I'm still learning how to be confident in this identity, how to exist in the world as my authentic self. But with Miles beside me, it feels possible. It feels right. He makes me brave. He makes me want to be honest and open and unafraid. So yeah, I never thought I'd become the kind of person who looks forward to their morning commute, but I did, because of Miles. Because he saw something in me worth pursuing, and he had the courage to pursue it, and I'm spending the rest of my life being grateful that he did.